Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. So instead of going into like a very deep technical side of like cloud security, there are a couple of things that we tend to miss because we look at a much wider picture. So from my end, my name is Sybrand Strauss. I'm with a company, ITR Technology, and we represent ManageEngine in South Africa. Obviously within underneath our tool sets, that caters for various areas in IT that's so broad. And today, obviously, I'm just going to focus a little bit around the cloud side. We're going to talk about, obviously some of the options, what we have in the cloud space, the need for data protection, the role of the security life cycle and compliance, and also just a couple of tips. I think, and also for the time, we will never be able to cover everything. But obviously the tips, might give a little bit of insight, and then also by making use of machine learning capabilities. So let's go to, the options, that we have for cloud. I mean, there's so much and so many options available these days, and over the past couple of weeks, as I scroll around, some articles and so on, I came across quite a nice and an easy, image, that kind of illustrates, the options that we have for cloud. So putting it in terms, some of you might have seen this. But they use this example as, pizza as a service. So what is it that we do get from various cloud offerings? And as I said, some of you might have seen this, but I thought, instead of sharing this in any case, traditional on-premise, service offerings is pretty much an entire meal that you make at home. That is the traditional on-premise approach. Infrastructure as a service, where it's literally you go and grab a frozen meal from the store, you take it home, they provide you with pretty much the entire meal, where you just got to go ahead and have the dining table sorted, soda or drinks of your choice. You have to provide the gas and the oven, electricity, fire in order to cook. So that is your responsibility. Platform as a service is having a take-up, having it delivered to your home. So pretty much everything is done for you. You just literally unwrap and continue with the dining. And then lastly, software as a service is pretty much like the full dine out experience. So if we go and look at this in IT terms, it's a quite nice and neat explanation. So the on-premise is where you as the business or IT takes full responsibility for everything in your environment. With the different cloud offerings, we've got from the service provider, where infrastructure, they provide you with pretty much all the hardware information, and you got to do the licensing, the application, the data. The responsibility sits with you. Platform of a service as a service, where you provide the applications and feed in the data. You need to take care of that, whilst the service providers will take care of the majority. And then full SaaS, software as a service or SaaS environment, where your provider manages everything on your behalf. So I've used this as an example, the need for data protection. Taking company data versus personal data. So, you know, the question would go around, you know, would you trust a stranger with, you know, your personal items or your personal information? You know, what is it that they can do with your personal information? And what do you do to secure your personal information? So, personally, I wouldn't trust a stranger, and I'm sure 99% of us out there feel exactly the same way. What is it that they can do with your personal information? They can open up fraudulent accounts, withdraw money, you know, all of the bad things out there. And lastly is what is it that you can do to secure your personal items or personal information? So if you don't need your wallet, you know, do you keep it at home? You keep it in your car? If it's something of great value to you, you will most probably keep it locked up in a safe. And why would, you know, we treat corporate information and corporate data any differently? And would you trust a stranger with any of your corporate information or your corporate data? No. What is it that they can do? So with all the attackers out there, they all have different, you know, meanings in terms of like, why would they try to hack a business? Is it in order to retrieve company information to go sell on to third parties? Or is it purely just to disrupt business in that case? So what is it that you can do or what you're doing to ensure that your corporate data is kept safe? So the role of the security is, you know, a big question is whose responsibility is it? There is a very big shared responsibility across business, cloud provider, and then obviously the user itself as well. So a good example is, you know, you go to a bank, you pay them a monthly fee to keep your finances and your investments safe. So as soon as you go to the ATM and you withdraw the cash, you know, the responsibility sits in your hands. So again, some sort of shared responsibility. What we can do is, you know, the adoption of bring your own devices has grown quite significantly, and you know, a lot of users are quite open to go with this, you know. So we need to ensure that our end devices are secure. Again, that also is very, very weak. Of the weakest entry points into an environment would be through end devices. Mobile devices, laptops, desktops. We need to ensure, obviously, depending on your cloud model that you go with, that, you know, we've got secure application development, secure application deployment in terms of containerization, have continuous application development cycles, you know, in order to ensure that we've got the latest and greatest technologies built into our applications so that the data that it handles is secure. Identity access and user monitoring, what are the guys doing? Implementing the use of key management, you know, either bring your own key or keep your own key. And the big saying goes in the zero trust, you know, is trust nothing and verify everything in today's day and age. From a secure provider side or from a cloud provider side, you know, they can definitely help from their end to set up a secure perimeter and obviously adhere to the compliance and regulations, you know, based on the POPI, GDPR, First Mile, PCI, and so on. They can ensure that the platform that they provide is secure, but again, on your side, the responsibility, what is it that you do? So obviously cloud these days have grown so quickly, and we've seen that a lot of our customers these days also have a multi-cloud adoption. And obviously the reason behind that is quite obvious, is that, you know, costing, different models, different service offerings, etc. So the adoption for multi-cloud is definitely picking up. But again, around and with this, you know, the risk of any misconfigurations also adds to you know, a weak point for an attacker. And you know, times have changed. So the complexities these days and the level of technical expertise involved in carrying out a full-scale cyber attack has narrowed down quite drastically. You know, a single vulnerability in any misconfigured system or a mishap is all that it takes for a low-skilled threat actor to gain administrative access into your network. So a couple of you know, pointers to make where we look at you know, the data point, the application side, and the user, is that from a data end, you know, make sure that the data is encrypted, and also ensure that, you know, you have successful key management processes in place. So when you leave the provider, you ensure that no data is left behind. From an application side, is make sure that you have good controls in place in your application development cycle, with taking on continuous application scans for vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, so that you're sure that the data that sits in application memory is also protected. Something to consider as well is, you know, containerization. You know, whenever you pick up on any attack, in that case, it's very easy to just redeploy a new container every single time, which narrows down on deployments. And from a higher level is a couple of easy steps. Ensure you know where your users are logging on to. You know, ensure you've got identity access in place. Ensure that you have strong passwords enforced, multi-factor authentication capabilities and technologies deployed. Ensure again on the endpoints that's secured, and also geofence and geolock, and implement network access controls to try and restrict as much external usage and access into your cloud environments. So several other options available as well is that, you know, we've got the management, the access management in place, where we can collect several application and device logs that can be fed into, I mean, there are hundreds of different tools out there, a lot of great ones that will help you gain insight into many areas in a hybrid environment, in a cloud environment, that will help you ensure compliance, identify threats, identify patterns, identify user and device behavior. And by using that information, you will be able to respond and remediate a lot quicker to protect your data going forward. So some of the tips, you know, to take into consideration is there's the 80-20 rule that says that, you know, 20% of the effort that you put in will contribute to 80% of the actual results. So, and this is all on easy areas. Some that I've mentioned already, you know, take full inventory of all the hardware, all the software in your environment. Have a clear view of your configurations. Perform continuous risk assessments. Scan your environment from an endpoint perspective. Make sure you've got your applications patched accordingly. Also look out for plugins and extensions. Those are usually some of the areas that we miss, because we just think, if the operating system is secure, everything else will be good. Ensure your third-party applications are patched accordingly, and also restrict, the number of administrative privileges. So an example in that case, we can say that, let's take two organizations with the same number of people, the same number of technical users, where in the one organization, only 2 users have got full administrative access, and the other organization, more users. It's quite obvious to identify which one is more at risk. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, these words have been top of the charts, for quite some time, and a great piece of technology that will help us identify, action a lot of things a lot quicker, because IT and security is so broad these days. We just don't have enough eyes to look at everything. So implementing AI and ML technologies, will help us gain patterns and behavior and help us to forecast and also to plan accordingly going forward. UEBA, monitor activities around it. We can analyze from multiple sources, network devices, applications, cloud logs. We can detect insider threats. We can pick up any signs of compromised accounts, identify where the risks are, and action and remediate a lot quicker. So some of the scenarios that I can use is, let's take an example when an employee's contract isn't renewed. So clearly he wants to disrupt business, where machine learning capabilities and behavior analytics can help identify these type of patterns. Anything that happens out of the normal baseline, the IT administrator will get notifications so that they can investigate a lot quicker what's going on, meaning that the employee stays longer out of business hours. They're already starting to access different files, different folders on your cloud devices, making unauthorized changes or deleting files. So that's out of the user pattern. So systems can pick up and identify and put a risk score behind the user and notify admin to go and investigate. User accounts that are being compromised. We will always have the user in an organization that will click the wrong link, not deliberately, by accident, and it will install malicious activities or malicious software in the environment. By that, it will install multiple services in the back end. Again, that is something out of the norm for specific users. Again, we will put a risk score behind it. The attacker will gain access to the user from a remote location. Machine learning and behavior analytics will pick up on this and up the risk score. Jumping from machine to machine, as an example, then the administrator again will get notified with a higher risk score to go and investigate. A user that changes jobs, data exfiltration. A user marketing is employed by a competitor company. So in that case, the user will log into a database of some sort. They will run a couple of queries, create new files. Everything and all of these actions are happening outside of the norm. And every step, the user inserts a USB, they copy file across, data leak prevention takes place, and the admin will get notified. So those are some of the steps or some of the capabilities where machine learning will help you to identify any abnormal type activities, whether it's happening on cloud, multi-cloud, on-premise. Tools are out there to help us. So that's me for the session. I see that the time has passed. So I am available for any questions or any one-on-ones throughout the day. So please feel free to reach out.